Hello, viewers, and welcome back to Absolute Scenes. This is our reviews of the top 100 IMDb films of all time. Today, we're at number 76 for the Japanese anime film, Your Name. It was produced in 2016, written and directed by Makoto Shinkai. I'm going to apologize up front if I get any pronunciations wrong. I don't speak Japanese.
It's too late. It's too late, Mitchell.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone switched over. This was an absolute smash hit in Japan when it was released. In the year of release, it was 10% of all box office revenues in Japan, and it grossed twice as much as Star Wars: The Force Awakens. But it wasn't as much of a hit internationally, but it is available on Netflix, and that's where we've watched it. So we can now answer the question, was this an illustrious Japanese anime, or did they need to go back to the drawing board? So this is the first on our list of Japanese anime, Dan. So we haven't had an opportunity to talk about it before. So are you well versed in this as a genre?
And not particularly. I think my range of anime extends to Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Pokemon, Digimon. I've seen like a few other like sort of one-off little things. I watched Death Note, the TV series Death Note, not the horrendous American film. So that's as far as my anime knowledge goes. I obviously know of Studio Ghibli. I've seen Kubo and the Two Strings. That counts. It doesn't because it's stop motion. But that's about it. I've seen a few real life Japanese films, but in terms of anime, I am not well versed. What about you?
Well, you're more well versed than I am. I mean, the closest I've got to any Japanese cinema is watching Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
No, Mitchell, you love Battle Royale. Let's not forget.
No, oh god, yeah, I've forgotten actually. Yes, I did like Battle Royale. That was good. Oh yeah, so good. I've forgotten about it. Yeah, but no, I haven't watched much anime, so I'm good. Look, I'm gonna save my reaction first because I know we had a few texts on this, but we didn't reveal. We just kept saying "gosh" to each other in a text. I don't know if that was like incredibly British or what, but we don't know what we meant by it, either of us. So Dan, you can start. What was your overall feeling on this film?
Well, I kind of had two feelings. So for the plot of the film, it's a body swap film. So very reminiscent of Freaky Friday. There is a film that I cannot remember the name of. It's got Anna from the OC in it, which is a bit of a romantic film where two teenage people of the opposite gender swap bodies, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna fall in love later on or whatever. So it was a bit reminiscent of that at the beginning. There's also a scene where they've got the credits that is very, very important. So please watch it. If you haven't seen the film before and you are intending on watching it, pay attention to those credits. They actually mean something. Whereas I was like, oh, this is cool. Little intro. It's really important. So for the first half an hour or so, 45 minutes, I thought it was fun. It was good. Wasn't bored. But at the same time, nothing special other than the animation from the get-go is incredible. It's one of the best animated things I've ever seen. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. You can tell loads of love has went into it. But then about an hour into it, your feelings just change. And it's one of the best film experiences I've ever had, I think. Genuinely. I was so invested in absolutely everything that I think it actually changed my mood in real life.
Well, that's a big sell there, Dan.
Yes.
I have quite similar feelings to you on it. You know, I started watching it, wasn't really sure what I was getting into. Didn't even read the blurb, just threw myself in there. As you say, it's a body swap film. I don't think that's a spoiler in any way. But when you see the first few scenes of that, and you know, he's like squeezing his boobs and like checking out the body, you are thinking a bit. It's feeling a little bit, yeah, Freaky Friday, poor comedy. What's this going to be? And I agree entirely. It seems to be a hallmark of some of the films on this list where the twist the twist happens a lot earlier, because when it was building up to it, I was thinking, I feel like the story's coming towards an end here, and we're only just beyond halfway. So where's this going? And yeah, when it hits, it takes you on a completely different emotional journey, which is yeah, you just get drawn into it. I was well invested in it, and yeah, it really did like impact on a mood. Considering you're watching a cartoon, I don't know. I found it incredible.
I'd say as well, with a lot of cartoons, we say, is it for it's for adults and children? I'd argue this isn't remotely for children. I'd say young adult is sort of the youngest you'd go with something like this, because it's not easy to follow. And it's one thing I really appreciate is that it trusts the audience. At no point is a pander to us. And the one of the major differences, even within the first 45 minutes that we're talking about there, is with something like Freaky Friday or 17 again, which is a bit of a different type of body swap film, or any of these types of films, there's an inciting incident where they both say the same words at the same time, and then they cross over. And we know what the conclusion of the story is that they have to learn to respect each other. We know that it's some kind of gypsy or voodoo magic or something along these lines, and that once they come to appreciate each other, they'll swap bodies or whatever. But this has no inciting incident. It's just they randomly wake up in each other's bodies. They don't know why. We don't know why. We don't fully understand what the lesson is. So even for those first 45 or 50 minutes before you're really invested, you just spend time getting invested in these characters. There's still a mystery there. You're still thinking, well, where is this going? What is the point of this? And that is enough to keep you engaged, as well as obviously the beautiful visuals. What did you make of the actual anime style?
I thought it was incredible, actually. I thought visually it was incredibly vivid. It was detailed. I think there's some incredible sequences in there. And I think what I was quite surprised with is it's an animation very different to the animations we've looked at so far. And they don't shy away from taking on really challenging things with lots of movement, with vast kind of landscapes that they're looking at and stuff. So I thought it was brilliant, the anime. I know that there's a particular style of stylized representation of a person in it, which is common as a theme throughout. I find that maybe a little challenging sometimes, because the characters look fairly similar, particularly when they're in school. I find it a little bit of a challenge to always be able to tell who's who. But otherwise, I think the animation is fantastic.
Yeah, notice it's the lighting. They do so much with lighting, and what's amazing is everything was hand drawn. There are a couple of scenes where they do shove the hand drawn images through a computer. Because there are some incredible cuts and edits in this film. Look, editing is easier with animation because you're just in such control of everything. But when it's all hand drawn, if you make a mistake, you've got to go do it again. It's not a computer where it's like, right, cut, we'll do that. We can just edit something. We can do something here or there. Everything has you've got to start from scratch. It's like normal acting. I am just so surprised that I've never seen this before. I'd never really heard of it outside of this list. And just how much I enjoyed it and how actually emotionally affected I was by it. And I feel like a film like this makes the entire list worth it. If the other 99 films on this list were bad, it's worth it for this one. And it's not a perfect film. There, like you say, it's a little tone deaf in some areas where, the first time he wakes up, and this isn't a spoiler, and he's touching the body that he's in's boobs. It's like, well, I understand that the first time you're in shock, you're like, what are these? What's happened? What is going on? But it is a theme that he sort of does it every day, and that's just non-consensually touching someone else. So that it's like, oh, and it is addressed in the end where she calls him a pervert and all this sort of stuff, but it is a bit wishy-washy, and it is confusing. Like the first 20 minutes, I was just very confused. I didn't know what was going on. The introduction, I think the music's a little wrong. We'll talk about the music. The music's a little wrong for it because it's too hyped up. It's too, I couldn't take in. I wasn't thinking what I'm viewing here is important and the music matches it. It was very, at the start of, as we mentioned, like Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, you've got this really up music. You've got sort of scenes from episodes or films or whatever, and you're not paying attention to it. You're just like, oh, this is a catchy little song. So I think that could have been better, just so that I knew what a little bit of what was going on. Everything else, though, was just, it made up for it in abundance.
I mean, if we're talking about some negatives, right? There's plot holes aplenty.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, but this film makes it so easy to look past those. The message and that's cutting through, and that emotional tie that you have with those characters, and the willingness to want them to achieve in what they're doing, that takes over and removes any sense of that couldn't possibly work. Yeah. If that happened, the physics just don't match the outcome. I'm willing to cast those aside for this film because I just really enjoyed watching it. I'm a bit different to you on the music. I thought the music was good. I liked it throughout. I find it quite otherworldly. I think it lends itself well to the story and the theme.
I love the music. Absolutely love the music. I was going to talk about it, particularly again the second half when he's stood on the bridge with the phone, and from then on, I think the music is beautiful. It's not losing any marks for the music. It's just literally for the introduction, when the edits are very quick, it's very flashy, and you can't quite see what's going on. Like, to fully digest it, you need to watch it a couple of times. And then, because after I watched it, I went back and I just watched the introduction again because I was like, I'm sure I recognize something from this. And I just thought what I'd benefit from was just slightly slower editing. And because the music is very up and very quick, it needs to match. The editing of the music and the animation need to match. So if they just chose one of the other songs to match with that at the beginning, instead of trying to have this really up music and actually a fairly slow start, then I think that would have been just a bit more beneficial for the viewer that hasn't got a clue what's going on. This is a film that I'm going to be watching again 100%. And I think it's going to benefit from multiple watches. I think there's so much going on that there's no wonder that I was confused for the first half an hour. But again, I think it's great that they don't pander to me or the audience. They maintain their integrity of the story and they want to go there. And like I say, we can't get into too much plot holey wise spoilers, but I'm grateful that they didn't try to explain too much.
Yeah, last thing I was going to touch on before we go into ratings, because it's often something we talk about in technical quality, and that is acting. Now, I'm going to assume you watched the English version as well, Dan. You weren't trying to watch it in Japanese?
No, I think next time I watch it, I'm going to watch the Japanese, but for the sake of this, I just thought I'm just going to watch it with the English dub.
I thought it was really good with English dubbed. I mean, so ultimately all I was going to say is we can't comment on the Japanese acting in it because we obviously can't understand it. But the English dubbing, I actually think it's a really good version. I think the acting's quite good in it, and it's not a difficult film to watch. Often people don't like watching dubbed versions, but I think this is actually really, really pleasant to watch in that sense. You wouldn't automatically think this isn't originally done in English, apart from all the writing on screen, obviously.
Well, yeah, except that is one or two things where there are some really important things that are written that then aren't translated. So you're like, what? I don't know what that means. We want to talk about this with spoilers, I think, because we kind of need to. So let's rate it so that people can go and watch it themselves and come back. What are you going to give this for your technical quality scale?
I think talks a lot about a lot of the good things. I think it's a great story. I think, as you said, it doesn't pander to the audience too much and tells it in a really good way. I love the animation. I thought it was brilliant. Like the music, acting from what I can tell is good. There are some plot holes. I said I wasn't going to. I don't think it drags away from my enjoyment of it, but there's no doubt from a technical quality point of view, it is lacking in a few areas. So it does drag it down a little bit, but I'm going to still give it a 9.
I'm just going to reiterate everything that you just said there. And then, yeah, like I say, a couple of editing choices in the beginning. I think genuinely, I do think the first 10 minutes could be edited better just to make it more palatable. And it's not, I don't think that's because of us being a non-versed anime audience. I do just think it's very, very frenetic. You're right. At one point, I did sit there and go, this doesn't quite make sense. And then you're immediately just sucked right back into it. So I'm going to give this an 8.6 for technical quality.
In the same region.
Yeah.
Enjoyment, I think, is a completely different question, though. There is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that much to not enjoy in this film. So I'm going to go higher. I'm going to give it a 9.4.
Mitchell, I'm going to give it a 9.4. It's the second film on this list with The Hunt, go watch that review, that I genuinely felt something for, that I watched it and I had very, very real, legitimate emotions towards. And the fact that they don't have any, like physical actors, they're all voice actors. It's all animation. It's amazing how they can possibly do that. It's incredible. And I think it all comes down to character and storytelling. This could have been very basic. I actually really like early 90s Japanese anime style that's a bit more rough around the edges. I don't like overly polished animation. Fair enough, it's something like Pixar, because it doesn't quite look like animation. It tricks your brain. But when you see modern cartoons and they're all very crystal clean, that's, not my most favorable style of cartoon or anything like that. But the way that they translate everything across, just go watch it. Everyone, it's on Netflix in the UK right now. Go watch it.
I agree entirely. I think everyone should watch this. And this is what the bucket list is for us. It's forcing us to watch films that we've been told you have to watch these in your lifetime. And I think we can categorically say this is the second after The Hunt where we are telling people you should really go watch it.
Yeah. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. We are at scenes_YT. And now we are going to talk about spoilers. So Mitchell, one of the things that sort of blew me away with regards to storytelling is that it did things to my brain that I didn't realize were happening at the time. So whilst I'm watching films, I quite like to, as you know, I like to write. I like to sort of branch off in my own head sometimes about what would be a really good idea for a story. And at this stage of the film, we've got the body swap issue going on, and I think they're on the phones and they're leaving all the messages. And at this moment, I've thought to myself, what would be really, really cool is like a body swap movie like this, but we're going like backward and forwards in time. In 20 minutes later, I realized that is not an organic idea of mine. I didn't realize that's where this film was going in the slightest. I didn't think, oh yeah, these are two different timelines. But somehow, and I still don't know how, they've managed to subconsciously put this idea in my head. And I don't know if you had any idea, if you knew where it was going, or if you felt the same, or if it was completely out the blue. How did you feel about that reveal?
I mean, I was very surprised. I didn't have that same subconscious experience. I'd be interested to know when you go back and watch it, if you can see anything where that seed was planted, and that would be interesting to know. But I mean, for me, I tend to do this kind of similar thing. You think about where this film's going, and you kind of project the ending yourself before it gets there. And for me, I was just thinking it was going to be this simple story of they both wanted different things in their lives, or certainly thought they did. That was very much planted on you with the girl, where she wanted to be in Tokyo, in the city, in a busier place. And then I thought maybe there was just going to be this experience and then realization that actually what they've got is the perfect life, and they were going to get real contentment at the end or something like that. Yeah. And that would have obviously been quite boring. It's certainly not as good as what it turned out to be, because I think it really did the jeopardy, the emotion, the relationship between the characters, and I just thought like everything about it drove this story into a place I wasn't expecting it, and a place where I was so more emotionally invested than I could ever have been from anything that I was thinking of in terms of where it was going to head. So yeah, I just thought fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the message was going to be the opposite of things like Freaky Friday, where they have to appreciate one another. I thought the message was going to be they have to appreciate themselves and the lives that they have, because all's Matsuo, I think that's her name, talks about is wanting to go to Tokyo and wanting, a nice handsome boyfriend from Tokyo, and Taka's late for everything, seems quite apathetic. Obviously he's got his job, but it's just a part-time job while he's at school. And through each other, I thought they were going to enrich each other's lives. And then there might be a through line where they end up getting together, and whether she moves to the city or he moves to the country, I didn't really know where it was going to go physically, but I thought emotionally I could grasp the beats. And then obviously the rug gets pulled from underneath you, and it's a completely different story entirely. And I love that. It's a real hook. And then, like you say, we've had all this time to get emotionally invested with these characters, despite their flaws. We want what's best for them, but there's also like a bigger picture. Obviously, they're trying to save the lives of 500 people. So we don't know what's going to happen. Either, is one of the possibilities she's going to save the people, but she's going to sacrifice herself? Are they not going to save the people, but she gets out? Is he going to sacrifice himself and everyone else gets out? There's so many different permutations that could be, positive or negative. And you're just on the edge of your seat because you only want what's best for everyone. And like I say, some of the cuts, the scene where they go to write each other's names on their hands, and then she writes one line and then it disappears. Everything disappears at twilight. And there are storytelling devices like that in it. In class, the teacher says, we all know about Twilight. It's the place between night and day where magical things can happen. So at the end, when they can fight, when they see each other, we know that that's been set up previously because Twilight is this magical time. And they're the little things you mentioned before about it'd be interesting to go back and see how they implanted things. One thing I noticed when I watched the introduction again is it shows them at different ages. And there's even one scene where Taka is smaller than Matsuo, and then it edits and he's taller. I wasn't taking any of that in. Like I said, I didn't understand the beginning. I actually was sort of a bit distracted because I just thought this is a quirky intro with some good music, and I was sort of looking around a bit. And when I went back to watch it, I was like, well, this is where all these little things have been just placed. And there might be others in the film that I really want to watch and I really want to pay attention to see if I grasped it or not from there. But it certainly wasn't an organic idea, but the movie made it feel like I did have one, which is like mind blowing. So Mitchell, with regards to plot holes, I'll be honest, usually, we've done it in previous films where we think, well, how does this work? How does that work? I'm going to be honest, I can't cogently fully explain a lot of the plot holes. And the reason is because my brain went, that's a plot hole and I don't care. Because I'd suspended my disbelief throughout the entire film. It wasn't enough to break it, and I was emotionally invested. So do you want to talk about the plot holes? And I'll agree, but also it's all to do with time travel, I'm guessing your plot holes, because they were mine. I was like, this time travel stuff actually doesn't make any sense. But I just wasn't bothered enough to try and figure it out. So do you want to talk about it?
I mean, I certainly can't explain them because they're still gaping holes. But yeah, the thing is, anytime you make a film that's got any elements of time traveling, you are walking on coals, because it's always the same thing of, if you change something in the past, how does that change the future? And you're already living in the future, so you're in this mad spiral of, well, if I'm already living in this reality, I must have already changed the past, or else, anyway, it's an impossibility to explain. It's an impossibility to to do, and they didn't bother, which I think is great. It's just in one reality 500 people died, and in another one they went back and saved 500 people's lives, and then he went back and he just kind of couldn't remember it, so something different must have happened in life, right? So you kind of hinted that maybe his life went slightly differently because this event happened, but he couldn't remember it, so that was fine. And I think that's good. The other is just the nature of the meteor. You know, like, I mean, we talk about getting hit by a meteor and we wipe the dinosaurs out. I mean, it wouldn't just land on a town and flatten the town, and oh, that's nice.
Half a town, not even the whole town. Yeah. Half a town.
Yeah. So that's one. And again, I'm willing to just accept that it was a metaphorical meteor or something. I don't know. Something
I don't think it was a metaphorical.
Something happened that was going to destroy the town, and that's just what it happened to do.
This isn't a plot hole. This is a character choice that I marked it down for on the technical quality scale that I couldn't really say in spoilers, in non-spoilers, sorry. And that is when Taka in Matsua's body decides to, you know, right, we need to tell everyone to evacuate. And the two friends just go along with it, even though one of them, it's absolutely not in their character to go along with it in the slightest. But also there isn't really a convincing argument for doing what they've done. There's just this manic person shouting Armageddon, and they're like, yep, let's do it. Let's become criminals. And I just thought, you've acted randomly there. You haven't, it's not a case of acting illogically. They've acted randomly for the sake of the plot. It's not a plot hole. It's just a bad character motivation. And I don't know if there was a way of just writing in that they did something else, try to do something else.
Yeah, because funny, that's like one of those things where, because we're seeing it internally to them, we're well invested. We understand what's happening here, and we can see it. They're not crazy. This is happening to them. It's one of those things where if they give you a camera shot of someone else's viewpoint of them like running around the crater and like thinking they're talking to somebody, but there's no one there, those kind of things is, yeah, from those two characters' point of view, they would just think, my friend has gone crazy. Why am I going to go blow up an electrical substation with them?
Yeah, it's exactly it. With regards to the locations, they are so beautifully designed. I've been to Japan once, and the Tokyo scenes, at no point did I think I was anywhere other than Tokyo. I thought it was just so brilliantly presented to be that city. And then the little fictional town, I can't remember the name of it. I want to go on holiday there, meteor or no meteor. I really just want to go there and chill out by that lake. It looks like a lovely little place. But I think what it does is it really talks about the actual climate within Japan. So there are places in Japan that are suffering the same as this village, not from a meteor, obviously, but in terms of their young people wanting to leave to go to the city, whether that be Osaka or Tokyo. It's speaking directly to Japanese audiences, and it's acknowledging something that's going on in their society, which is something that, because I knew about, I felt more invested immediately, and I was interested in that alone. So if anyone isn't aware and you've seen the film, that is something that is actually going on, and it's good to maybe have a little read up on it or look at it, because it's very, very interesting how everyone is sort of migrating away from these rural areas in Japan. Mitchell, do you have a favorite scene in the film?
Yeah, I think there's multiple good scenes that I like. Like, I think, I mean, I wouldn't narrow it down just to scenes, but I think the whole crescendo towards the will they, won't they manage to get the villagers to safety, I think is a good scene. And then I don't know if this is the same for you, but the actual best scene of this film is once that's all happened and it's now like modern day and they're in the city and they're kind of aware something's happened to them, but they don't really know what it is, why, what they're looking for. That's when I started getting really emotional. And the will they, won't they on the stairs. Look, I think that is the best bit of the film.
That was maybe the bit that made us the most angry, but in a good way. Where you're shouting at the TV, just turn around and talk to her. Just say hello, say something. Like, he's clearly acknowledge each other, like especially when they look at each other on the train. And there's definitely a level of acknowledgement. And then they've always got their head down and they're walking past. I was frustrated, I was angry, but these are all good emotions, obviously, at the stage. My favorite scene is absolutely Your Name is Taka, when she's running and they've had the twilight moment, they've had their moment together. And I found out what he actually wrote on her hand, because I was thinking, is this a plot hole? Because he'd written his name on her hand. He managed to get that far, but he actually didn't write his name, stupidly. He wrote I love you, which is just so nice. Stupid, really stupid. You could have just solved yourself 8 years of heartache here. Or 5 years for him, 8 years for her. But you're still just like, oh, that's really sweet. And when she's running, and you've got, like you say, the crescendo, it's a crescendo of editing, it's a crescendo of music, the animation, because the meteor's coming, it's the most beautiful animation. And obviously, the meteor's come to kill everyone. And yet they've drawn it so beautifully and magically, and it's almost a character of itself, and it's a real spectacle. And yeah, when she's running to try and help everyone, shouting Your Name is Taka, I'll remember you, I was just like, I love this film. So that for me is the best scene, personally.
You talking about what they've written on each other's hands, that's just made me remember the plot hole that again, it's technically not a plot hole. It's just something that they've chosen to do because they want the plot to be driven in a certain way, and they want certain things to happen. But it's the nature of, right, they're going into each other's bodies and they're leaving messages for each other on their smartphones. And yet, the only way he can work out where he was is he's, from memory, he's done a sketch of that place, and then he's started going around Japan and like showing it to people. Do you know where this is? I mean, Japan's massive, right? They had a smartphone, and in other scenes you actually see them using a map with a GPS arrow on, and it's like, you mean you didn't just switch the phone on at any point and just see where you were? Like, but again, narratively that wouldn't work, because you have to see him kind of overcome the challenge of not knowing where it is and wanting to find it so bad that he's willing to do that. That wouldn't have worked had he just been like, yeah, I Googled it, says it's 2.5 hours away on the train, 3 changes.
Well,
City Mapper says the line's down now, so I'll wait until next week.
Only an hour and a half on the Shinkansen, Mitch. Well, the other thing that you could have done is went back to the gallery, and do you know how he saw the photo of it? And just went, can you tell us where that place is?
Yeah, you're right. Probably had a little tally on anyway.
Yeah, little date and place.
I'd look right. I'm looking at all of these as a positive, right? Because you know as well as I've done, we've done quite a few reviews now, and I always get annoyed by stuff, and it really irritates me, like when there's plot holes or things defy physics and stuff like that. But in this film, none of it matters to me, and I think that's absolutely testament to the quality of this film and the story and the emotions, is because I'm willing to look past them all. But there's plenty of them.
And I think one of the benefits for it being animation is that it really disarms you. It makes you a lot less cynical. You appreciate it's more about spectacle as well. And because of that, you aren't thinking about the plot hole so much, because you're just so charmed by everything else. And when you're not fully engaged in those things, in your brain kind of just goes, it doesn't matter. It's a bit like how we talked about historical inaccuracies last week with Braveheart, that some of them just didn't matter. You can, like, they do, but they don't. So, and where, like with this, anything just kind of didn't matter because it wasn't the point. And It was charming, it was disarming, and it was so original that it was like, well, you know what? I'm going to give the writers so much leeway because you are trying to tell a story that I've not seen before, ever. I've seen time travel, I've seen body swaps, I've never seen them done together. I've never seen it done so beautifully. You can have a pass on time travel plot holes. Because time travel doesn't exist, time travel is a plot hole.
I do know it doesn't exist.
Yet.
Well, I've always been of the opinion if it existed, you'd know by now because someone would have traveled back to tell you.
Well, you say that, but why would they travel back to specifically now when there's probably more interesting times to go to? Unless it's because it's infinite. But who knows? Who knows? And that's the point. It's like, don't get wrapped up in time travel. Just obey the rules of the film. And if it's within the film's universe, that's fine. And because this doesn't make any attempt to explain anything, it's like, okay, I don't care. If anything makes it better, it does make it better that it doesn't try to explain off time travel. Other than it's more of a spiritualistic thing. That's the explanation. It's that there's a thread that can combine souls and entities and things like that. And say, okay, I can believe in a magical thread. It doesn't bother me. You've told me that this exists. I can believe it exists. It's not like at the very end, it's went, it was a magical thread. It explains it 40 minutes in or something. So obviously me and Mitchell are giving this a big thumbs up. Go watch it. Like we mentioned earlier, it's on Netflix. If you're watching this spoiler bit, you've probably already seen it. If not, we've ruined everything. Actually, we haven't spoiled the ending. We haven't said whether they live, die, get back together or anything. So actually, haven't spoiled too much, gratefully. Real quick, were you happy with the ending? Won't even say what it is, but were you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah, me too. So go watch it. If you've already seen it, go watch it again. And let us know what you thought about it in the comments on our technical quality and enjoyment scale. So I think this is a really interesting one for that scale. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We are at scenes_YT. And we will see you next time for Coco.